it's Dr. Shinika, and I'm so excited to have you guys here for tonight's Spark session because you are in for a treat. I'm so excited to actually introduce not only my friend, but Millie is my mentor as well. So I'm so thankful for her being here. So thank you so much for joining us. But let me tell you a little bit about her before we jump in and get all to the good stuff. So Milagros Millie Russell, professionally, she goes by Milagros. We're friends, so you'll hear me reference her as Millie throughout the night. Is the CEO of Riot for Change, which is a diversity, equity, and inclusion consulting and learning firm. She is an architect of change, a servant leader, and a heart healer. And a fun fact that I'm sure she's going to tell us more about is that she just jumped out into entrepreneurship full-time with her partner. So I'm so excited to hear about what Riot for Change is going to be doing. And I just know it's going to be wonderful. But anyway, inclusivity is at the core value of her DNA. She is an Army brat that has spent most of her life between the United States and Europe. But so early on, she learned how to adapt to new cultures and sharpen her skills of connecting with people from diverse backgrounds to overcome feeling like an insider. Her life's journey has been learning, personal development, and transitioning from assimilation to authenticity. Millie has over 24 years of experience in organizational leadership and employee development. Her career has a diverse flavor with experiences in the following industries: higher education, retail management, global textiles, financial services, and healthcare. She is an avid strategist, innovator, people seer, and healer. She is passionate about helping individuals and organizations win, according to their definition of what that looks like. Last but not least, she is also a wife and a mother of two beautiful daughters. Her and her husband own a barbershop and beauty salon in their hometown of Greensboro. So she'll shout them out later, but yeah, check them out. And she enjoys family time, world travel, reading, people watching, and hearing every person's unique story. So you guys, it is my pleasure to welcome Milagros Millie Russell to Spark Sessions with Dr. Shinika. And tonight, her session is titled From the Wilderness to the Promised Land, Using Lived Experience to Grow and Become. So Millie, before I get into the prepared questions, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you want people to take away from the session tonight.
So first and foremost, Shinika, thank you so much for having me this evening. And so I hope that in this session, I get to impart some wisdom, but I hope we have some fun too, because I like some humor. Yes. And I'm going to tell it like it is in this session. You pretty much said it all. I was over here blushing when you were reading that, because it's different when you write it, but then when someone reads it, it's like, whoa. So yeah, like Shinika said, a week ago, it's a week today, that my business partner and I stepped out on faith, and we stepped into full-time entrepreneurship. So our company, Riot for Change, was created back in 2020. That's when we sat down, talked about the vision, and got to work. We officially launched to the world in 2021 and had some clients part-time. And then some events happened, and we'll talk more about that prompted us to go ahead and just take the leap. So that's a little bit more about me.
Thank you so much. So before we get into it, I like to ask everyone that comes on this first question. So if you could be any light source, what would it be?
Okay, so I have to be honest. When I read that question, I was trying to think about all the extravagant light sources and ignoring what my gut said about me. So my intuition was like, Millie, you're a spotlight. And I'm like, who wants to be a spotlight? I know you're sunshine. Like Shinika and be sunshine. But my heart and my gut said spotlight. So let me explain that a little bit.
Okay.
I do quite a bit of mentoring and coaching. And so, and Shinika, you could probably attest to this. I'm a truth teller to the heart,
yes,
right?
You are.
So I will sit with you and encourage you and inspire you and motivate you to get you going. But the other thing that you get with that also is the truth. And sometimes that truth is not ugly, not pretty. Sometimes it's very direct. So when you have time with me, I'm your spotlight. I shine all of the great things about you over you. And I'm also going to tell you those things that are hard truths that are going to help you grow and become.
Yeah, she just did that to me right before this call. Like we had a whole total heart to heart. But again, you want somebody that's going to be honest with you versus leading you on.
Yeah. And those are the people I want in my life too. You can't be
Right.
part of my squad if you don't do that.
Yeah, I need you to be truthful with me. Like I'm a big girl, I can handle it. Okay, so let's just go ahead and get into it. Tell us about how you stepped out on faith into full-time entrepreneurship, because that's a big step and I commend you for that.
Yeah, so let me try to bottom line it because I know we don't have much time. That's a big story. Over the last 2 years, there have been a lot of precipitating events that have led to this moment. First and foremost, the vision came to my business partner and I in February 2020. So right before the pandemic, right before we knew COVID was going to shut the whole world down. So we started working on that, and then COVID happened.
Okay.
And that's a distraction and all of that. COVID, the lesson from COVID over the last 2 years is that life is short and tomorrow is not promised.
Yeah.
I got COVID talking to me and the lessons from COVID. The other thing is there were some things that my business partner and I have been in corporate America, if you will, since we graduated from college. Mm-hmm. So for me, that has been 26 years. And in my last position, there were some events that happened in 2021 that caused me to say, God, are you telling me to leave my job? Because it sure feels and sounds like it. So I won't go into detail about those events, but there were just some things happening at work that I was just like, it's time for me to go. So that, and then the last thing that I reflect on is that my husband and I went for a walk one day. I think this was probably October, maybe November timeframe. I can't remember, last year. And I was talking to my husband about feeling like it's time to step out of work and step into full-time entrepreneurship. And so my husband, if you know him, is so very wise. And he says, listen, you and I'm going to call my business partner out, Kiva Elliott, because she's on this Zoom. Hey, Kiva. But so he said, you and Kiva have all the skills and the ability to do anything that you want to do. He said, but here's one thing. And y'all, I proclaim to be a Christian. Okay. Hopefully whatever you believe is what you believe, but this is the foundation of my life. He said, God is not going to meet your need unless there is a need. So as long as you two have these full-time jobs, you're not going to have full-time clients. You can't handle a full-time job in the capacity that we work, because you got to understand, she was a corporate executive and I had a pretty high-level role in the organization as well. You're not going to be able to manage that job and full-time clients. So what are you going to do when people say, I want you to work and do this 1-year contract with my organization and it's full-time? The other piece is, as long as you have these regular paychecks coming in, there's no need, right? You got enough money to do what you need to do and have a pretty decent life. So God meets you at your point of need is what he said. So I looked at him and I was just like, whoa, that was good.
That is good.
Doing to me what I do to other people. And then I said, okay, so let me just ask you this question flat out. Would you mind if I quit my job? And he said, I'm ready for the riot struggle. Let's go. So at that point, I was like, okay, God. At the time we had sold our house. We were looking for another house. And I was like, okay, I have 2 requirements, Lord, if you really want me to go. I need a house. And then there was another event happening at work that needed to happen before I felt comfortable leaving. Within a couple of weeks, we had a contract on a house. Yep. So very first house we put an offer in, it was accepted. We moved into the house December 19th. Then the event that happened at work happened in January. And on that very same day, Kiva and I put in our resignation. The point of all of that is to say, God will meet you at your point of need. And okay, so we've been in entrepreneurship a week. I'll give y'all a little insight and some transparency. When my business partner and I stepped in, like last week, we had one active contract, one act client, if you will.
Test of my fire, girl.
Okay, one. So we're like, okay, we need more contracts. Y'all, we got another contract this week. We have so many people who want to talk to us about proposals and different work, and
God meets you at your point of need.
At our point of need. Absolutely.
Somebody needs to tweet that. God meets you at your point of need. I'm gonna tweet it later.
Yeah, okay. Tweet it.
So a few things that I took away from what you said that I think really jumped out. So first of all, you got to trust yourself. Secondly, you got to recognize when it's time to go. And then know that the skills and abilities that you have, you got to step into that natural gift and talent and stop running from it, point blank, period. Manifest your requirements. And God will meet you at your point of need. So what I took from that is you've got to have that confidence and that faith in yourself and what you bring to the table to know what you're capable of. And I think I say this probably on every session. I think a lot of times that people are more so, it's not that they're scared of the failure. I think people are scared of success. And it's like, what if it works? I've been guilty of that in the past. I've gotten past it. The failure part is easy because there's always a lesson learned there. But what do you do if it's successful? And
And I think people are scared of the work that it requires to get the job done, which another one of my favorite scriptures is faith without works is dead. What good is faith if you don't do the work?
My grandma always says, anything worth having, you got to work hard for.
That's right.
So,
and it takes work. Between 2020 and 2021, when we were building the company, we were working full time in COVID, y'all, and in healthcare. Okay. So we were and trying to build a company. So we worked nights, days, weekends, made a lot of sacrifices in terms of time and money out of our own pocket. So there is I don't want to make it seem easy because it's not. There is work involved. And I think people are afraid of the work that it may require or the sacrifice that it may require.
And I think,
but is it worth it? Yes.
And I think that goes back to, I'm a passion person. And I think to some extent, if you're going to step into entrepreneurship full time, you have to have some passion around it because you got to have that. That's what's going to fuel you to keep you going. Because like Millie said, I don't know anybody that has a guidebook to what it looks like to be a successful entrepreneur because her path is going to look very different from my own. So I think another thing that is important to talk about really quickly is the comparison piece. And how you can't compare your journey or your path to someone else's. What are your thoughts around that?
Oh, yeah, you can't. So getting to the question of, you asked one of the questions around advice to your younger self.
Yes.
That is certainly part of my advice because it is so easy to compare yourself in your race to someone else's, especially when everybody's business is on social media. So it is so easy to say, wow, they're doing that. And we're the same age and I'm here. It's so easy to do that. And here's the thing, all of our races are different. We were meant to do different things. So I learned a long time ago, your competition or who you compare yourself to is yourself. So my measuring stick is, am I becoming better than I was yesterday?
True. And I agree because I tell people all the time, and some people may feel like it's arrogant, but I don't compete with other people because the standard that I hold myself to, I have very high expectations for Shinika, and I know that you have similar expectations for yourself. So it's hard to compete with that. And so again, just be mindful that you're exactly where you're meant to be and your journey is your own. So don't get caught up in the comparison, and just remember that social media is a platform that people show you what they want you to see. That's only one lens into what they have going on.
Yeah. And the other thing too, comparison, and I see a lot of people with timelines. Throw the timeline out. My mom reminded me that my childhood dream was to be a CEO, and I didn't really remember that. I
Right.
remember being the boss of my sisters and being the boss of everyone else because I was the oldest. But she said you were always starting a play business and you were running the company. There's no timeline. So yes, I've actually actualized that now in my life, but I'm 48 years old, y'all. Yeah, life has happened to me. Just when I thought about a business, I had a newborn baby and a husband and a job, and I was traveling and I couldn't figure out how to do it. So, the timelines of my life, the timeline that I created for myself had to go out the window because you just got to go with the regular ebbs and flow of life.
Right.
And you can't get on the platform if there's not preparation to be on the platform. You can't get on the platform if you don't know anything because
Yeah.
people know it. Throw the timelines out.
Timeline where you're younger. Oh, well, I'm gonna have all this and that by the time I'm
Yeah.
25. And it's no, you're not.
You
Like,
don't even know who you are at 25. I
you
didn't.
don't. Not girl, me either. The 30s is where the development really started coming into play.
Yeah, I didn't start living until late 30s and even in my 40s now. So yeah, I had to throw that timeline away because life would tell you, you got to be this and do this by this and all of that. And it just doesn't happen that way. What is meant for you will find you.
Yes, and I think I want to do make another point out of that is society can tell us that, oh, women's life is over at 30. No, it's not. 30s is fun. You define what your future looks like. No, that's the only thing that matters is what you think and what you want to do.
It's just really beginning, y'all, at 30, honestly. In your 20s, you wrestle with who you are
Yeah.
and who you are
Broke.
professionally and yeah, all of that. And then your whole brain, the front of your brain isn't even connected yet. So you're really just living at 30. Y'all heard about the woman who was 50, 51 that just had her first baby. Throw the timelines out.
Yeah.
Don't let society pressure you and say that something has to be done by age whatever this time.
Yes. Okay, great. Thank you so much for that. Okay, now let's get into the personal development and the growth stuff. So why should you align first of all, can you talk a little bit about what is the difference between a professional development strategy and a personal development plan? And then why should you align the two of those?
So I'm going to take a different approach here.
Okay.
Because for me, in my younger years, I try to align all of that stuff and decide what's this professional development strategy and personal growth strategy and all of that.
Yes.
And for me, there has really become there's no differentiation between the two. Okay. So opportunities to learn and grow are all around us and they happen daily. I was just processing. So I process a lot with my business partner, Kiva, and I was processing something that happened to me the other day. And pretty much she was like, okay, so what are you going to do about that? How are you going to change that? So for me, there's no differentiation because there are opportunities. If you're self-aware and you're reflective, and what I mean by reflective is that you take the time to sit down and ask yourself questions. What kind of impact did that have on me? What were the consequences of that situation? How do I need to change or how do I need to do something different? So I ask myself a lot of coaching questions throughout the day. And then I begin to integrate what I'm learning about those things in my personal and my whole life. So for
Right.
me, it's holistic life integration. So
Okay.
there's really no differentiation for the most part. What is what you get at home with me and at work. So yeah, my lessons in my professional roles as a leader, I've integrated at home. How is it that I could sit here and extend a lot of grace to someone else and be patient with someone at work, but then I get home and I start yelling at everybody? So it's just integration and becoming more of my authentic self everywhere I go.
Okay, thank you for that. So, what I took away from that is, of course, you need to be self aware and have that reflection time, which is essentially being emotionally intelligent. Emotional intelligence is having the ability to be empathetic, to have awareness of how your actions and behaviors impact other people, being able to read the room, trusting your intuition. It's a combination of different things, but it's so important in how you show up in life. And then something I like that you said, spend time with yourself. And I think that's we're going to dig into that a little bit deeper, because I think sometimes people run from themselves because that inner work it can be ugly. And sometimes when you have to take that deep look within, you might not like what but I think that it's important. So let's talk about that. Like, how do you, and I think because I want to talk about it because I feel like until you get down and do the dirty work, you're not going to really understand what you need or where you're trying to go, or even align in the purpose that you should be walking in, whether it's personally and professionally. I'm with you. They are aligned and they're intertwined. So let's talk about how do you do some of that inner work to make sure that you're on the right track to achieve your professional and personal goals?
Yeah, who I'm being and who I'm becoming are very
Hmm.
important to me. I certainly want to align my actions and who I am with who I say I am. So I like to align my talk with my walk. So here's the thing. The fire made me. I have spent enough time in the fire, and don't get me wrong, I'm still in the fire, because in 1 week of full-time entrepreneurship, you're still dealing with some of your opportunities and and personal challenges, or you're getting in your own way.
Yeah.
So I was made in the fire. So in being in the fire, here's what I learned. If you don't learn the lesson the first time, what happens?
It's life gonna keep teaching it to you.
It's gonna keep coming up. How many times are you gonna have to deal with that lesson? So for me, I was hard-headed growing up in my younger self. And it occurred to me, if you don't get the lesson, it's going to come up again. And so that's when I, decided to take a step back and say, okay, what am I supposed to be learning here? And what am I going to do to make sure this doesn't happen again?
Right.
So that's what made me take a step back and be reflective. And trust me, there have been a lot of lessons that have resurfaced because I didn't learn them the first, second, and even the third time. And you just get tired of that. Somebody told me a long time ago that people typically don't change or grow until their point of pain is great. And I'm a witness. Okay. So yeah, that's what made me take a step back, become a little more aware, and do some self-coaching. Ask
Okay.
myself some really good, deep coaching questions. And here's a point I want to make, Shinika, is that you know how people say that they want to build muscles,
Right.
right? So here's the thing. There's a level of resistance and tearing that needs to happen for a muscle to grow and build. So I liken the same thing to growing and becoming and developing. There's a level of resistance, tearing, and pain that needs to happen for you to grow and to learn.
Yeah, I love that.
So
Okay, thank you for that. So, takeaway there is life is going to keep teaching you those same lessons until you get tired of the pain point. Sometimes just save yourself the time and learn it the first or second go round. And
amen.
then take that step back. And sometimes the greatest lessons are in some of your challenges or some of the things that like you thought, oh, it's a failure. No, it's really not. You've learned something that's going to make you a better person at the end of the day. And I think if that's a mindset shift to see the good versus the bad in everything in life.
Yeah, so my personal motto is you either win or learn.
Right.
So, because the concept of failure keeps you in bondage, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, you either win or you learn.
Right. Someone said, if you're not failing, if you're not failing often, are you trying hard enough? And that's just a different perspective to look at it. Like sometimes the failure, the lesson is there. So in that kind of same space, how do you find your opportunities in your challenges?
Yeah. It goes back to, for me, I'm very reflective.
Okay.
So absolutely. If I had a busy day, I take 30 minutes or whatever time I have in the evening to ask myself some questions. How did you show up today? That's a question I ask myself. If it was something that negatively impacted me, I ask myself, was it me that caused this to happen? Is this a consequence of some of my foolishness?
Right.
Because sometimes it's us,
Yeah.
sometimes it's not, but sometimes it's us, and we
That's
have to take responsibility, ownership, and accountability
right.
for some of the decisions that we made that weren't so smart.
That's where that
So
awareness comes in.
yeah, I do this every day. I also have great people around me. So I have good girlfriends around me who keep it real, who ask me really good questions when I'm not in that space to do it. I also have a husband that keeps it down and dirty and will ask really good questions or just tell you that was just dumb. And so we'll start talking about that. So like going back is everything is an opportunity to learn. There's an opportunity to learn and grow in every experience.
Yep.
But you have to sit down and be reflective. You got to do the work.
Yep. And that's a point I meant to make earlier was this is where I love journaling. And I think journaling, meditation, things of that nature are so important intentions in this type space, because this is where when you do the reflective work, what's the beauty of reflection is gives you the story of growth. I always encourage my coaching clients, take time if you're feeling stuck somewhere, if you're just dealing with something, write, journal out why you're feeling the way that you're feeling, because sometimes you got to just pause and spend time with the emotion.
Yeah.
Because if you don't address the emotion, it's going to keep stirring up, or like you said, you're going to take it out on someone else versus spending time with yourself and just processing, it's okay for me to feel like this. I'm going to give myself like 5 minutes in this space, as my mom calls it. She always makes me get off my pot. She's like, you're not going to sit on the pot, Shinika. And I'm like, I know, just let me have my moment here. But she never lets me have my moment, which I guess that's a great thing. And that goes back to having a strong support system around you. And so I tell people all the time, what does that show you? Who wants to be a millionaire? Like, you are the weakest link. And I tell people, you are only as strong as your weakest link. And it goes back to y'all. I'm country. We have all these weird sayings, but they say if you lay with dogs, you'll get fleas. You are the company that you keep. So again, when you're really trying to grow and step into this next season or this next phase of your life, you have to recognize that sometimes that's when you start shedding people, shedding associates. And it's okay, because everybody is not meant to go along with that journey that you're on. And if you're dealing with people that you don't have anything in common with, or they're always talking about people and gossiping, like, you're going to start to shed those people when you're on this path of self-discovery and aligning in your purpose.
Yeah. So I call those friend audits.
Okay.
So,
I like that.
and I'm constantly assessing, who my list.
Yeah. You have to have people. I'm a firm believer in, you've got to have people in your circle or around you that add value to your life. You don't want, because some people are toxic and they just take to a point where they've taken you and your cup is like empty. So you got to make sure that you add people in your life that add value and that you actually want to spend time around and that you can grow and learn from.
Yeah. For me, it's all about self-awareness, reflection, and surrounding myself around that strong support system.
Yep. Choose people that choose you.
That's right. Oh, and choose people who are going to tell you like it is.
Right.
And what's interesting is sometimes people audit me, and because I'm too real for them, I get cut off all the time.
Yeah, I had a friend cut me off because I was too blunt. As your friend, and because I care, I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And if you don't like it, then, maybe I'm not the friend for you, but I want someone to keep it real with me all the time.
That's right. So yeah, I'm good with being cut from the friend audit list too.
That's all right. It's their loss. Okay. So what advice would you give to women who are allowing their fear to hold them back?
Yeah. So here's the thing about fear, right? Is that fear does not go away.
Nope.
Let me just say that. Week 1 into entrepreneurship, and sometimes fear still surfaces.
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't go away. Expect that to be around. But here's a question I offer. Which fear is greater? So for me, the fear of staying in my current situation, which wasn't the greatest situation for me by the time I left, that fear was greater than me stepping out into full-time entrepreneurship. So it's almost like you got to choose your fear too. Here's the thing, 2 years have already passed when we started talking about our business. So you could either step into purpose and make things happen, or settle for a life that is mediocre.
Right. And
so,
I mean, sure.
And I don't want to belittle anything. I'm just saying the fear doesn't go away. So just do it. And I think people might say, hey, you got a husband. You got somebody to have your back. Okay, but here's the reality. You don't know people's financial situation. And I was the breadwinner for our household. So yes, I have a husband, but we created a lifestyle based on my income. You can say that all day, and that really doesn't have any. You got to choose your fear, because fear doesn't go away. I have a saying on my wall. I'm going to read it to you all. She was powerful, not because she wasn't scared, but because she went on so strongly despite the fear. And that's by Harper Lee. I think the book was To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I like a good quote.
Yeah. So it doesn't go away. So do it, y'all. Just do it. For the worst thing that could have happened, when I thought about it, was that, okay, we don't get any contracts. My business partner and I are experienced, competent, gifted, and talented enough to go get another job. So I had to make that rational.
Yeah. You got to put yourself out there, guys, and do it in spite of being scared, because the time is going to
pass, and either you could have something great or not.
I tell people all the time, if I would have like just some of the ideas I'm just now executing, but of course, life timing is always ideal. But if I would have moved on 10 years ago, I'd be a millionaire by now. Take the time to flush your ideas out because nobody can execute what you want to do better than you.
That's
And
right.
you know what you want and need.
Yeah, we've lived in a situation, and I don't want to make this morbid, I just want to make it real, where death came close to a lot of us. If it wasn't someone in your family, it was a friend or a loved one or something. Tomorrow just is not promised. So go, I don't want to be like Nike and just do it, right? But do it. Faith without works is dead. And
Okay.
faith is so easy when things are going well. But what are you going to do when your back is against the wall? Are you really going to have faith?
Yeah, and I tell people like faith and doubt can't live in the same space.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
Okay.
That's double-minded.
Yes. I think this one is so important because I think a lot of people, especially having to go back into the office and working in spaces where it may be predominantly white or there's not a lot of people in leadership that look like you and things of that nature. So, how do you show up as your authentic self in a workplace with microaggressions or where you feel like it's not safe to be your authentic self?
Yeah. So that's a really good question, first of all.
Thank you.
And second of all, that's not always easy. So let's just be real about that, especially when you're not white and
Right.
you are surrounded by white faces. But here's my approach. So in any relationship, whether it be personal or professional, I focus on really connecting and getting to know that person. So I focus on relationship building. And I spend a great deal of time there so
Okay.
that I can create a relationship of trust and safety. And I do that with everybody, white, people of color, it doesn't matter. Focus on the relationship building. And I do that because when something comes up, like a microaggression, and I'll give you an example in a minute, I have a relationship built with that person so that I can sit there and educate them.
Yes.
And I can educate them without fear of fear of losing the relationship or fear of retribution or retaliation or any of that. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
So for me, one time, one of my colleagues at work, white woman, she was a leader of employee relations. And I like to change my hair up. And so at the time I was growing my hair out, it was real short and I got a real long ponytail. There was a distinct difference. I left work yesterday with a fade and today I got a long ponytail. So she came and touched my hair.
Oh.
Yeah. So that happens all the time in the workplace. So
That happened
I
to me.
politely asked her, let's go to your office because we were real close to her office. And I said, girl, let me tell you something. You don't do that. You're an employee relations leader. You should know you shouldn't touch anybody, number one, but you really don't touch a woman of color's hair or anybody's hair for that matter. So we had that conversation, but because we had that relationship, I felt comfortable addressing it with her. And that was no different than executives. I've done a lot of work with executives over the year, and I leverage my relationship to educate. Now, there are times where I was too emotional and I couldn't educate. So what I would do is step away. And then when I was good, I came back and educated later. Because sometimes, girl, those microaggressions will trigger you. They'll hook you.
Right, they will.
So it is totally okay to step away from the situation and then come back and circle back and have a conversation. So that's my approach. I focus on relationship building in any situation so that any kind of conflict, microaggression situation, any of that comes up, we can address it right then and there. Okay. And that's how I stay my authentic self.
Thank you. So second piece of this is the relationship and trust building is great, but what do you do in cases where the environment is not inclusive, where you can have the conversation, or you may feel like your position is not high enough for you to say something, or you feel like if you speak up, it's going to be retribution, or you're going to get in trouble or something like that? How do you manage it in those instances?
So in that case, you got to do what you got to do to survive, right? In that environment. I don't want to sit here and give you a prescriptive, but just survive. And because in that moment, I know you need your job.
Right.
But the other thing for me is I go where I'm celebrated and not tolerated. So I don't stay in those environments for long. So those are when an environment is toxic like that, I'm just not going to stay there. I have a whole my resume reflects I'm in a job for 2 to 3 years, right? Before I stepped into entrepreneurship. And a lot of times if it were a toxic environment, I was looking for a new job.
So I think the main takeaway there, ladies, is you got to value yourself, appreciate your worth, and know what you bring to the table. And sometimes it's going to require stepping out of your comfort zone, and because you get complacent in these companies and I make good money, I can tolerate it. But if it's impacting your mental health, or if you feel like it's draining to you, you got to take some steps to move out of that situation.
Yeah. So I know you had Tava a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
Talking about burnout. And I will say this. Toxic environments burn you out. And I have been in situations where the only way the burnout went away is for me to leave that environment, like forever. So that's the only way to alleviate that.
Yeah. And burnout is real. If you feel yourself experiencing that, take the necessary steps. It may take a little bit of time, find something else, but don't, like she said, go where you're celebrated and not tolerate it.
Yeah.
But thank you for that. I felt like that was just an important thing to kind of address, because I think a lot of us struggle with that.
Yeah, I hope we're out here helping somebody.
Right, I sure am. If you're being helped and this is resonating, just drop it in the chat. We'll open it up for questions once we wrap it up. So just in the same space of inhibiting behaviors and doubt, what are your thoughts on imposter syndrome, and what would be if as a coach or entrepreneur or just female in general, how do you combat it?
Yeah, so imposter syndrome. So I know there's a whole debate on whether it's real or not and all this other stuff. So yeah, I don't get caught up in semantics, because you can have a debate over nothing because of language. And that's just to be going back and forth on semantics. I don't do that. So here's the reality. There are situations where we doubt our ability, our gifts, and our talents. Typically that shows up when you're starting a new job. Most people spend that evening thinking, oh my God, can I do this again? So for me personally, the way that I combat that, and again, this is being very reflective, is to look at my collective history of life. This is where I start walking down memory lane and saying, what are those situations that you did these things and you were met with success? So I start collecting these memory pieces that tell me that I can do it again. So that's where I start. And then I muster up all the confidence and boldness that I can in that moment, and I go for broke.
I love it. I love it. So if you take the takeaway there, guys, is sometimes you have to remind yourself who you are. And I think one of the ways that you can do that, Millie said, muster up your memories, but you can do this through a brag sheet. Just keep a running Word document of all the things that you've accomplished, whether it's in your career or your professional life. I think they're important in your work life, because if you achieve a big results from a project, put that on there because it also comes in handy at the end of the year when it's time to do your performance review.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I also don't put myself in situations where I am an imposter. Because sometimes we say we can do stuff and you ain't really done it. That's like me trying to be a backup dancer for Janet Jackson, knowing
Right.
that I'm going to have an asthma attack the minute I start moving.
I don't even have the rhythm.
Yeah. So just, you're an imposter if you're putting yourself in situations where you don't have the skills, talent, abilities, etc. to do it.
Just because you can do something doesn't necessarily mean you should.
Well, a lot of times we can in our head. When it's time to execute and show what we can do, we can't.
Right. Okay. I love it. My last kind of question before we wrap it up and open it up for questions would be, how do our experiences impact how we show up?
Ooh, child, that's a good question. So
Go. How do our experiences impact how we show up?
yeah, how we show up is all about our experiences, right?
Right.
So you can always tell when someone hadn't been through anything, because the wisdom and the depth just isn't there. I liken that to someone who, okay, years ago, there would be people who would get married. And after 2 weeks of marriage, all of a sudden, they want to have a marriage retreat and teach the people.
Right.
Well, what do you know in 2 weeks of marriage? Absolutely nothing. What are you going to teach the people? Nothing. So our experiences are all shape who we become and who we are. So you can always tell when someone has been in the wilderness or the fire or has been through a lot and has integrated the learnings from those experiences when they speak or when they're or in their own being. So our experiences directly relate, who we are.
Yeah, I was on Twitter, someone, it was like, we're talking about it, like it's this 24-year-old, like, I was like, she's so much you can be a life coach. You're 24, like, what can you tell me about life? And I think that's important, because even when you're working with coaches, like, you can't necessarily trust someone to tell you to do something they've never done before.
Yeah, so it's interesting because when I was in my early 20s, I decided that I wanted to be a life insurance agent and all of that stuff. And then one of my clients actually, she wasn't my client. She asked me, she was like, how old are you, baby? She was a seasoned saint. And I was like 22, 23. And
Yeah.
she was like, what can you tell me about life insurance and investments and all this other stuff? And she had a point. I couldn't really tell her much other than what I learned from the book. But now, those are topics that I could talk about.
Right. Like life, wisdom, life, and time. Okay.
So, yeah. All of that is directly related.
Yes, it is. And it's important. When you show up, just make sure that you're showing up at 100% and as your authentic self, because that's what's going to take you forward in life.
Yeah. And so many people want the platform without the wilderness. And I'm telling you, y'all, go through what you need to go through to get there. Because people can spot somebody who hasn't been through anything. Right. And I'm not going to give you my good money if you don't have the wisdom or depth.
Yes. Okay. We talked a little bit about this earlier, but what advice would you give to your younger self?
Yeah, so that the timelines, don't get caught up in comparison. What else would I say to myself? I would say enjoy the journey. We got one life. And so many times we rush through what it is that we need to learn. We rush through pain, and there are lessons in pain. There's a becoming through pain. We don't like to be uncomfortable. So in all the highs, the lows, the joys, the tears, all of the emotions of life and everything that you're experiencing, learn and grow from those things and enjoy that process.
You got to be present. And the growth piece is growth is uncomfortable. So sometimes you're going to have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So as we wrap this up, what would be the main takeaway that you would want everyone to remember?
So the big thing is, don't be afraid. The title had to do with from the wilderness to the promised land. So don't be afraid of the wilderness. Again, there are so many people who want the glory and not the story.
Right.
And there is no glory without the story. So don't be afraid. Take time to be self-aware and to reflect on the lessons of the journey and integrate those things in your personal and professional life.
Thank you for that. So enjoy the journey, guys. Okay, so now we're going to open it up that if anyone has any questions, this would be your time to drop them in the chat. I'm going to see if we've got anything over on social, and I don't see anything, but yeah, you drop your comments in the chat
here.
If you have them. Let's see what we got. Putting that on a t-shirt.
I need that t-shirt too.
They want the glory without the story. Doesn't look like we have any comments, but before we wrap it up, Millie, can you just, give them a quick overview of, here's your plug yourself.
Yeah. All right. So Riot for Change. Okay. First of all, let me give a plug to my husband, y'all. So my husband is the proud owner of Faith Barber Shop and Beauty Salon in Greensboro. So, whoop, yep. And then Riot for Change is mine and Kiva Elliott's company. And we are a diversity, equity, and inclusion consulting and learning firm, just like Shinika said. We specialize, Kiva and I are strategists, avid strategists. So we help organizations create and execute their strategy, their DEI strategy, no matter where they are in the journey. So you could be just beginning, you could be in the middle of your journey, and you could be advanced in your journey. But we help you create a roadmap around your DEI journey and help you execute on that. So that's first and foremost. Of course, we provide consulting services around DEI, and we create customized learning experiences around DEI. Shinika talked about microaggression. We have dialogue cards, two sets of dialogue cards, one where it's to get to know people on a deeper level, and it addresses some of those very uncomfortable DEI questions. And the other deck of cards is 25 different scenarios that describe microaggressions that happen on a daily basis at work when people should know not to do those things. So that is on our website as well.
What's your website? What's your website?
It's Riot for Change Consulting.com.
2 T's, guys, 2 T's.
Yeah, RIOTT. Look, you put me on the spot, girl.
Look, hey, this is the other part of this is we're empowering, we're highlighting other women entrepreneurs on here. I'm big about that.
And Shinika, if people reach out to you and want to know more, just give them my contact.
Yeah, so I'll drop. They have a Facebook page, and the really cool thing is she's agreed her and Kiva are actually gonna come back and talk about Riot in another session, and I'm hoping I can get Kiva to separate sessions. But thank you so much, Millie. This has been great. And as you guys know, I'm Dr. Shinika. I coach around business, nonprofit, and really just helping people overcome mindset challenges to step into their best self through, action strategies or whatever. But Millie, I appreciate your time this evening. And if you don't have anything else, I guess we're going to wrap this up. But I can't thank you enough for coming on. And again, congratulations for your step into entrepreneurship. I know that you're going to do phenomenal things, and you're just such an awesome person. So thank you again for coming on, and I'll make sure that once the video drops, we can just I'll comment, or you can come in and comment on under the video to tell people to follow your page. If you're not following us, I'm Dr. Shinika McKeever on Instagram and Facebook. So give me a follow. And Millie is Riot for Change. They have a business page as well. So Thank you. And thank you
Shinika.
guys for
Thank you, everyone.
tuning in. I appreciate
you.
everyone
Take
coming.
care, y'all.
All right, y'all have a great night.
Bye.